This is the Dynasty Market Report, where we look at a specific Dynasty fantasy football asset, be it a player or a pick, and we gauge the market. We know you should be buy low, sell high, but what is low? What is high? In this series, we find out. Today, I'm breaking a rule that I've had this offseason, at the start of the offseason. I've been waiting for players to finish their playoff run, but today we're covering Ken Walker, who will be playing in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, well, less than 2 weeks now. Now, normally I've been waiting because big things happen in the playoffs. Everyone watches the playoffs. Fantasy players' mindsets change based on what happens in the playoffs. And we can see that with someone like Ken Walker, who, since Zach Charbonnet has gone out and we've gone back to seeing Ken in a lead role, people have realized, like, oh, he is talented. Zach Charbonnet is just also talented. If you remember going into last year, I was saying, a lot of people were saying Ken Walker is the lead option for the Seahawks and we should be ranking him as such, and that issues with his performance in years past were tied to injuries. Now, I was wrong. Zach Charbonnet was the lead option. Zach Charbonnet was the goal line back. It was about a 50-50 split, and we'll go through the snap shares and the game logs and we'll look at this stuff. But Charbonnet was the lead guy. Now, Ken Walker is about to be a free agent, and I don't know that he's back with Seattle next year. Now, they might make an extra push to sign him because of the injury to Charbonnet. We don't know. And that's the market. No one knows. We think Ken Walker will probably get a lead role somewhere if he leaves, and we aren't sure if the Seattle makes a big push to bring him back. So if he is the lead guy, I expect him to be a pretty solid running back. And I think you should be able to get a first-round pick for him. Now let's pull up some value in the market. We've got Ken Walker on Keep Trade Cut. And if we track this, I've got this graph here set to 1 year of Dynasty value, and we'll get an idea of what the mindset was around this player. So here is last summer, June, July. He's sitting around 4,800, 4,900, and we're going to look at that for crossovers and other players to kind of swap in mentally. Once we hit the start of the year, his value plummets in that first week. Well, plummets comparatively. Loses about 700 points, 700. Maybe it's 4,800 to 43, so 500 value points. And we can find that in the game logs. Week 1, he plays 40% of the snaps, 10 carries, no touchdowns, a weak yard per carry against a tough San Francisco defense while they were healthy. Puts up 5 points in PPR. And then week 2, week 3, it rebounds. Now, he's not playing. He's playing 35% of the snaps in week 2 and 53 in week 3, but he's scoring touchdowns. And he's a player who can score touchdowns. So we go through 3 weeks and we're fully rebounded. And you can see that in the data. Here's week 1, a big dip. And then we rebound after he starts scoring some touchdowns. And then as the year goes on, Zach Charbonnet is just the goal line back and the first option for this offense. But now, as we've seen without Charbonnet, things are starting to rise back up. And if we're looking for where we can project Ken Walker to be this offseason, I think this range is about the ceiling, 4,800, 49, 5,000. So if we pull up other running back ranks, we can see that's going to put us around Kyren Williams, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, and then some first round picks. Here's Ken Walker down here at the bottom of your screen. So when we're looking at running back ranks, I don't know that I'm necessarily jumping him ahead of a lot of the guys ahead of him, like maybe ahead of Josh Jacobs, who's 28 and could be leaving the Packers this offseason, had a rough year with injuries. I could even move Ken Walker ahead of RJ Harvey, a player who is about the same age. Every time I try to hover the age on this site, it covers it, but right here where my mouse is, he's 25 years old. Ken Walker's 25.3 years old. Ken was in a split backfield this year. RJ Harvey was in a split backfield and likely will be again next year with Sean Payton. So if we're just saying what's a healthy crossover, play this Cam Scatterbo, Chase Brown range. Chase Brown's been in the league less time than Ken Walker, but is older than him. So the high end for Ken is in this Chase Brown, Kyren Williams. I don't know that I could really put him in the same range as Breece Hall. So now if we start to look at real trades that have happened, do we see that mid to late first round pick still being the crossover for Ken Walker? That's about what it was last offseason. And then in season that dipped because, well, he wasn't the lead option like we thought he would be. So here's where the market sits. I've got the scoring settings pulled up on each on each trade, and we'll call out some that show the value that Ken Walker is currently sitting at. So here's one from this morning. Someone traded 3 second-round picks for Ken, and I think this would probably light up a trade calculator. We could even take a look. Can we do Ken Walker trade calculator? What was that? The 202, the 205, and the 210. There is no 220, the 210. So yeah, it's going to say that the picks is the side. I don't know that I'm taking the picks. I don't know how often you can take 3 second-round picks and turn them into a mid-first. If we did this for someone that we said was the high end, it still lights it up and says that they would rather have 3 second-round picks than Breece Hall. I don't know that a lot of people are making this swap. And if we're calling Breece Hall the high end of the market, unless I had other deals set to move these picks for players, I'm not necessarily taking them. So you would need to know your league to make a trade like that. We're trading Ken Walker and getting a lot of seconds. Here, Ken Walker for Travis Etienne and a 27-second. I would take the Travis Etienne side. These are guys that I consider very similar in value. They both have had good years. They've both shown that they can be lead options, but weren't necessarily in 2025. Travis Etienne was more so the lead option. I'm actually surprised that he's having a 27-second thrown in on top of him on this value, because we've seen Travis outperform Ken Walker as recently as this year, up until Charbonnet was injured. And I don't know how many teams are going to see their running back room that much differently than the Seahawks saw theirs this year. I'm not sure that here's another way to say that. I'm not sure that Zach Charbonnet is a stud. He like that every offense would look at Charbonnet and say he has to be the lead option. I think that Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet they're both okay. They're both good. And Travis Etienne fits that good category. So I don't know that I would need a second round pick on top. So if I had Walker and I could get Etienne in a second, that is a spot where I would be getting out on Ken Walker, and I'd call that kind of the higher end of the market. I did see another trade on here that I want to find and call out. Here, Ken Walker after the NFC Championship game, Ken Walker for the 106 this year. If I have Ken, I would probably, I think this is about the most you'll get for him, and I would ship him out. What would it take for this value to increase past the 106? It would have to be Ken Walker signing with a team like the Chiefs, as well as the Chiefs deciding that they weren't going to keep Brashard Smith, their 7th round pick. It would need to be Ken Walker and not really anyone else in the question for him to be worth more than about the 106. Looking at other trades here, Sam Darnold and Ken Walker for Jalen Hurts. I'm still a Jalen Hurts believer. This isn't quite a Jalen Hurts video, but I would be okay moving these two guys to get Jalen Hurts, and then if I needed to, down tier from Hurts to some other options. Here's another spot where Ken was traded for a 1st round pick. Ken for the 112. I mean, obviously I prefer the 106. You do as well. Ken for a random 28 first. So what we're seeing is you can get a 1st round pick for this guy. It could be as high as around the 106. That would be the high end. And then you can get out, or you could, if you can't get a 26 first, you could probably get a random 27, a random 28. Here on the low end of the market, if you're trying to get in, I'm not sure why someone would take Alvin Kamara for Ken Walker, but they did. And let's see if we can find a different low end offer. Brashard Smith and 2 seconds, just like we had seen over here with the 3 seconds. I would say Brashard Smith is probably worth a little bit less than a 2nd round pick. So I would be fine getting in on Ken Walker there. And then the 201 and the 301 for Ken Walker is another one on the low end of the market. I don't know that you're going to go that much lower there. Maybe David Njoku, even in a half-point tight end premium. We're not sure where Njoku is going to end up this offseason in the mix-up. So getting Ken Walker for just Njoku, even in a tight end premium, I would say is closer to the low end. Njoku's probably worth a little bit more than the 2nd round picks here. But if we're just trying to find where's the low end, where's the high end, I think we've hit it with Ken. So if this has helped you make a trade or gets a gauge of what trades you should be looking for or avoiding, let me know with a like, a comment, or a subscribe. And if there's a specific player you want to see covered in one of these, let me know in the comments and we will move them up the list. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end, and we will be back tomorrow. We do these Monday through Friday, and I will see you in the next one.